I'm back with actor and director and producer Kevin Sorbo. Kevin, you were just rattling off a bunch of fascinating projects. Each one by itself deserves a little bit more focus. Let me start with the Reagan movie. Now, this is a movie that I know some of the guys doing it, and it's been in the works for some years now, probably delayed because of COVID. You say it's coming out early next year. Now, did you say that you play Reagan's pastor?
I do. In his earlier life. I mean, they cover his entire life. So I play his pastor when he was in his teens and his 20s. And I know you know Mark Joseph. I know you worked with Mark quite a bit as well.
Yep.
It's a wonderful movie. I think at this point right now, they had so much coverage, and there were things that stopped it. COVID certainly halted some production, and it spread out such a long time. I think right now they just want to fine-tune the editing because there's so much there. But you can't put out a 4-hour movie. It just won't happen that way. But that will be coming out, and Dennis Quaid did an amazing job in it as well. So I'm looking forward to that. But I wanted to jump on real quick is I want to be part of these movies because I want to do movies. It was back in the 1950s when Walt Disney said movies and television will influence our youth. Well, you can see what's being played out in our streets, not only in America but around the world right now. And, you know, Hollywood seems to put out movies with their own agenda, a lot of anger, a lot of hate, a lot of divisiveness. There's violence, there's over-sexualized. And I'm not a prude in any way, but I want to do movies that I fell in love with as a kid growing up. I want to do movies that have hope and love and redemption and faith and laughter in it. And Hollywood just doesn't want to do those. They're starting to wake up. You see what's happening with Netflix and Amazon right now. So they're starting to realize this whole woke insanity and cancel culture is not going to do them much good down the line because they can scream socialism and Marxism all they want. They're still a capitalist business, let's face it.
Yeah, I mean, when Netflix put out that memo that said, hey, you know, if you don't, and you're not willing to put up with other people who have ideas different than you have, you might want to exit Netflix. I thought that was very significant because you can be fairly sure that they've got a lot of woke people inside their complex, and but I think they must have realized it's ruinous for their business to operate like that. It chokes creativity, right?
No question. Yeah, it's no question about it. I mean, I did a movie called Let There Be Light that Sean Hannity funded, came out about 4 years ago, did very well. I got a call from Netflix right away because we actually were number 2 per screen average up against a $300 million Thor Ragnarok movie. And Netflix called me up and said, hey, we want to open an inspirational division with you. So I had 4 meetings with them over 2 months, but ultimately they still never did anything. Even though I had amazing projects, amazing connections, they still didn't do anything. I think now is the time for me to give them a call to say if you want to revisit this because there's 80 million homes out there that want the kind of movies that I do and the kind of documentaries that you do. And we need to, get past this ridiculousness and this anger and hate that's out there because none of it makes any sense to me. I don't harbor this hatred toward people who have a different point of view than I have. To me, it's just it's crazy. Who would ever believe that we would be we're at right now with all the nuts that are just happening. So I'm going to keep plugging away and doing the movies I do, and I hope you keep doing what you do. Congratulations on 2,000 Mules. I was there at Mar-a-Lago to see it, and what a fantastic, fantastic documentary. Congratulations.
Well, I really appreciate it. You know, what's interesting is, and Debbie would ratify this, we have had a pretty good relationship with a lot of the studios because of my earlier movies, but somehow with Trump Card and the name Trump, it was so radioactive that I found that these guys began to run the other way. Or run away from these projects, in part because they found them to be too toxic. I mean, they found them to be too far away from what they were able to go along with. But maybe there's some reassessment now, particularly also with Biden being such a disaster, that a sense that you need to have a range of projects that reflects what the diversity of the country wants, right?
Well, I think we've reached a tipping point right now, and when I do my speaking events, I do a lot of Christian education, pro-life events, and I always end up by saying, I'm not here to wake up the sheep, I'm here to wake up the lions. We got to not be afraid. I mean, Hollywood booted me out about 10 years ago, and my wife warned me about it because I got very vocal on Facebook and Twitter and all that. She said they're going to come after you, and sure enough, they said we can't work with you anymore. And I had to laugh at that because they're the people that scream for, freedom of speech, they scream for tolerance, but you and I know this is both a one-way street with them. But I just got tired of it, and I said, you know what, another door is going to open up for me, and it did. So I've been very busy with the independent world. I'm staying busy, and I'm grateful that's still going for me. I've got 4 movies lined up after this. I start filming in Houston next week. I got a movie in Minnesota, my old home state. Look at my state. Minnesota's turning into California. It's crazy with this politics there. And then I got a Western we're shooting in Oklahoma. It's going to be a faith-based Western called Trailblazers. So I've been very fortunate to keep busy on my own. Even though Facebook took me down and LinkedIn took me down, I'm still on Twitter. People need to follow me at Ksorbs. I do very funny stuff. In fact, President Trump retweeted me 10 times during the election year. I got to give you one of them because I think it's just too funny. When I was, this whole thing about the Roe v. Wade, I posted, I said, look, you had sex. What were you expecting? A flat screen TV? And it got a lot of hits, which was good.
Good one.
So, I'm going to keep going after in little digs and sarcastic ways to point out the ridiculousness of what's going on in the world.
I mean, one thing I feel I'm very happy about is that in this alternative world that you've been sort of pushed into, conservative, Christian, it does appear that there's a bunch of different projects that can keep an actor like you in business. And that's very important because otherwise you'd basically say, well, why would I speak out? I have no place to go. But it looks like you do have a place to go and you've got a whole bunch of projects coming out.
You know, Andrew Breitbart said it, right? Politics runs downstream from culture. Who runs the culture? Hollywood does. So I know I'm not reaching, I don't have a $300 million budget to do an Avengers movie like they do. But I know it through word of mouth and people are starting to know who I am in terms of the movies I'm doing. Like I said, I'm here in Israel right now. I'm getting stopped by groups of people from all around the world that recognize me, not only from Hercules, but they recognize me from the movies I'm doing. Like you mentioned, God's Not Dead, Let There Be Light, and Soul Surfer, which is pretty neat. And they say, please make more movies like this. And I tell you what, I'm working on it, but people need to go to sorbostudios.com and sign up. sorbostudios.com will keep you up to date with what's going on out there.
This is awesome. Well, so all the best to Sam. Have fun in Israel, and thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you at the next Trump event.
Look forward to it.